It should be noted that when I was planning the next project, I thought maybe I should not do a Lima upgrade or anything Western region. So here we are with a Lima Warship. This one's been in my possession since the late 1970s. It never used to get used very much because it was just a little out of our time frame, and even more so when I upgraded the railway a few years ago to Code 75 track, which meant it's been sitting lost and forlorn on the shelf for some time. So we'll strip it down, replace the parts that are lost and broken, i.e. the buffers, and then do some enhancement work with some photo etch from Extreme Etchings. That's Shoreplan, Brian over at Shoreplan. So we'll strip it down into its constituent parts, and that means because it's Lima there's literally 5, perhaps 6, 7 if you include the wheel sets. With the cab detail removed, it was then time to remove the glazing, and this should pop out, but would appear at some stage in the past. I've dropped a little bit of glue in there because it was a right pain. That was a joke, by the way. Then it was time to get brave, ready for the etched parts, namely the roof fan grills. I did this with my Dremel tool and a drill in it, and it was the case of drilling a series of holes and then joining them all up and then filing it round. And then the tedious bit of picking up all the filings, which took days. After I've done this little bit of filing, I then decided to be completely out of sync and strip the paint off, and that was done with Phoenix Paint's Super Strip 2, which took about literally 5 minutes. And if I remember, I will leave a link in the description for that sort of thing. It gets the majority of the paint off, but for some reason it leaves odd bits and pieces like the printed nameplate, which I got rid of with a really fine wet and dry. I think it was probably 1200 grit. The body fixing lugs on this model departed many years ago, so it was a new way of fixing the body on and filling the remaining holes. Now I quite often get asked about some of the tools that I use and where I get them from, and the answer to that is, well, the ones that I buy from like normal model shops really, and then sometimes I make them. Now this one is just an old chewed up screwdriver, a mini screwdriver, and I just got the Dremel with the file bit on it, cutting disc, and then just filed it flat into like a chisel shape, and then once it was to the right shape, it was then a case of making it to the right width. And I did that because I needed something to dig into the handrail or the door side handrail recess to get it filed flat. You could probably buy something like this, probably, but it was a chewed up old screwdriver, so it cost nothing and it owes me nothing anyway. And then the aim of the game is controlled pressure, because one slip is going to put a huge gash in the side of the engine, and we don't want that. And because I've gone to the trouble of chopping out the door handrails, I might as well do the rest of the handrails on the front and the lamp irons as well. I've got the lamp irons from Extreme Etchings as well, and that'll be the Great Western pattern ones. Fixed into place with a little bit of super glue, and then once that's dried, I then bend the excess over flush with the body side, on the inside that is. So my history on these locos is a bit vague and just a little bit out of my normal scope of interest. That saying, coming from the heritage that they do, which is the German V200 class, they should have been one of the most successful locos in British Railways history. However, politics and empire building would play a very big part in their early demise. Getting the roof fans to fold and fit nicely was one of the reasons that this video has taken so long for me to get out. Unlike real life, in model form, the roof is the most important part of the model because we look down on a model as opposed to looking up from real life. Patience and persistence, it seemed to work itself out in the end though. And if your preferred medium to work in is plastic like mine, even etched brass details can sometimes be a complete pain, but it's just worth hanging in and being patient, because I think the etched brass details are a vast improvement on some of the clunky moulded plastic parts. That's without saying that after you finish gluing these pieces on, there's a fair little bit of clean up to be done, ready for the next stage, which is a nice warm soapy bath, getting rid of all that grease and dust and unwanted bits and pieces, and generally cleaning it up, which makes a big difference because it's not been cleaned for at least 40 years. Before we go to paint, we'll put these to one side and deal with the chassis. First of all, providing some new cast buffers. The plastic ones had long since gone, disappeared, lost in the annals of time. And apart from a general scrub up, clean, degrease, that was pretty much all that needed to be done to the chassis. It was just replacing the buffers. Now, as I've mentioned probably many times before, when I rebuilt my railway, I did it with code 75 track, which meant that all Lima locos and wagons and coaches were rendered pretty much obsolete because of the depth of the flange. A friend of mine mentioned to me many years ago that there was a company called Ultrascale that do replacement wheel sets for these very locos. So I embarked upon ordering a set. Again, a link in the description for his website. It should be noted though, as it states on his website, that the lead time on these wheel sets can lead to 3 or 4 months. Dismantling a Lima loco has always been really easy. A pry bar to get the non-powered end apart and 2 screws holding the motor bogie together. One of the downsides of Lima, well, all Lima stock really, is the humongous couplings. Replacing them in the past has always been a bit of a hit and miss affair. Well, I have anyway. But due to modern technologies and glues on the market these days, affixing a new, smaller coupling isn't such a bad prospect. And with our new buffers firmly fixed in place, we can now gauge up where we want this coupling to be. The old one got chopped off and the new one got chopped down to size, fitted up, and then it was a case of just fettling a little bit to make it sure it fitted properly in the right place. I cut a few pieces of off-cut plastic card to act as braces and splines to hold everything in place, and then I'm going to use Deluxe Products Plastic Magic, because this stuff welds pretty much any plastic together. In years gone past I would have used Araldite or a similar epoxy glue, but this is much better. It sort of welds and melts the plastics together, creating a much nicer bond. With the new wheels temporarily in place, we can also make sure that we've got it at the coupling at the right ride height against a gauge block and other contemporary vehicles. Before we get too carried away with wheel sets and motors and stuff like that, I'm going to put it through the paint booth first with a grey undercoat, Humbrol number 1, before I meet my nemesis, yellow paint. Before we put the yellow down, we're going to put a matte white sort of semi undercoat down, and then before that's even dried, we then put the yellow on top, because that way it sticks That's what I've been told anyway. And it seems to work, because this is probably one of the best yellows I've ever done. The observant of you will notice that I've also missed a set of handrails on the top of the nose underneath the cab windows. I only noticed when I was actually on final assembly. I'll see if I can retrofit them later. That's after we've finished painting the blue, which was next, which is Rail Match 207, rail blue. Once that was dry, it revealed one of the nicest taped lines I've ever seen, well, I've ever produced. And while we're on paint, I thought I might just give the window surrounds a lick of silver just to sprucen them up a little bit. Some of the model car guys that I watch on YouTube do wonders with plastic windshields with a variety of lotions and potions. At the moment, it's not on a high priority on my list of things, so maybe in the future we'll look into some of that. The next job we'll do is sort these wheels out. It doesn't take much to get the old ones off, just a little bit of applied pressure and they come apart quite easily. Putting the others in is just as easy. Squeezing them together, and afterwards just getting your gauge just to make sure they are at the correct distance apart. One of the primary reasons I've found that Lima locos don't particularly work in the way that they should perhaps is that they only pick up on half of the wheels available. So we're going to do some additional pickups. Now, I must say that there is probably 1,000,001 different ways of doing this as well, but this is the way I do it. Remove the screw that holds the gear wheels in place, put a bit of tin it with some solder. You have to do it removed because otherwise it will just melt the plastic parts. Then we can tin a bit of brass rod and then solder that to the retaining screw. Then we can pay a visit to our little test track, and we'll be on analog for a start off, just making sure everything's correct and the right way round. Annoyingly, I seem to have lost the footage for doing the other end, but it's a similar process, the only difference being we glue a piece of PCB board to the bogie and then attach our brass wire to that. The simplicity of Lima also means that it takes literally 2 minutes to reassemble everything, it taking longer to actually solder the wires together than anything else. But once that's done, it's again onto the test track, ready for another analog run up and down, just to make sure everything's in the correct place and nothing's shorted. I was going to show how I hardwire these into DCC as well, but I think that probably deserves a video on its own, because there's probably a multitude of different ways of doing that, depending on how much extra you want to put on it, lights or sound or anything else. Now that it's installed, I can put it on the railway and make sure that it goes and behaves in the way that it should. Don't you just love a naked, bodiless loco running up and down? Nah, me neither. Time to finish off the internals, which is this nice new rad fan that came with the fan grills. And putting this together reminded me strangely of one of those fairground games that you'd play, Hoopla or something like that. Held in place by one of my trusty cocktail sticks, it was only a matter of applying a little bit of heat, soldering it all together, and then off to paint with a bit of primer and then red and then dry brushing a bit of black. Not that it makes any difference because it's virtually impossible to see through the grill anyway. And rather than creating an elaborate mechanism to hold them in place, I just employed the services of the glazing that goes in the engine room. Earlier on I mentioned that these aren't really my thing and it's a little bit out of my time frame. I could have purchased a second-hand or brand new Bachmann version of the Warship for the same price as probably what I've done here, but because of its sentimental value, having been in my possession since the late 1970s, I just couldn't let it go or replace it. That being said though, this one won't find itself going back into revenue earning service because it's just a little bit out of my time frame, as I've mentioned before, and it won't go back onto the shelf where it's lived previously for at least the last 10 years. This one is going back into the paint booth and will feature in another video upcoming soon, because this one has the worst paint job I think I've ever done. Apart from the yellow, that is, which is really annoying. In the meantime, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.